And we are recording on, can't get rid of the date yet, on Friday, November 7th, 2025 at 12:22 p.m. Eastern Time with Miss Claire Lopez, who's been on here a zillion times before. You guys can go to the description. You can most importantly find the link to her Twitter as well as her writings and all that good stuff. And thank you as always for doing this on short notice. This podcast is just me on a unicycle juggling chainsaws. And please excuse any noise. I don't know if you can hear it. There's like maintenance guys on the
No,
roof.
no, I
Um,
can't.
but because we have a short amount of time, I'm just gonna jump into it. Miss Lopez,
Okay.
how are you?
First of all, very glad to be with you again. It's been a
Yes,
while,
ma'am.
and
Yes, ma'am.
it's nice to see you again.
Yes, ma'am. Um, I don't know. I guess the only thing I've been kind of seeing, I guess, Mom Donnie one that's a big one, and then as well, I will say, I mean, it kind of seems like it's a tired topic. I know everyone's on it, but like, just how quickly you did see those, like, I don't know if you saw, like 2 days ago, there was this giant Islamic call to prayer, and the guy grabs the microphone, like in Times Square, and goes,
Oh yeah.
"This is the only true religion. Every Islam will enter the home of every American." Like 12 hours after Zoran won, and it's like, hey man, like
They didn't
there it
wait
is.
long, did they? No.
No.
Well, I'll begin with Election Day itself this past Tuesday, when for the first time, I served as an election officer at a middle school nearby where I live. I'm in Prince William County of Northern Virginia. And it was a very fascinating experience. Unfortunately, it was also exhausting. We were there at 5 in the morning, didn't get out until 9 o'clock at night. But it was fascinating to watch it all at that level. Kind of, this is the civic process at the very, ground county precinct, really precinct level. And it was a very interesting time. Good people there, lots of volunteers, and we're supposed to get paid if I can ever get paid through the 20-page instructions on how to sign up to get paid. But it was a very interesting day altogether. But yeah, then I get home in time, just in time to catch some of the, returns coming over TV. And, of course, saw that here in my state of Virginia, the Democrats, it's a blue state, it's a Democrat state, basically. Democrats swept the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. I was not so surprised, maybe, about the governor. Our own current governor could not run again. He was termed out. But to see, the attorney general race turn out the way it did really surprised me. You might have seen that not long before this election, maybe it was September latest, that the news broke and the text verbatim broke into the media, that now our new Attorney General to be, Jay Jones, who was a member of what we call the House of Delegates here in Virginia, was texting some time back, 2022 actually, with a fellow member of the House of Delegates. And he was saying that he wanted to put two bullets in the head of a fellow member of the House of Delegates because that member, I think it was the speaker actually, had praised someone he didn't want praised when that person had passed away, and at the memorial service spoke positively about this person who had passed away. And for that, Jay Jones, who's now the top law enforcement officer of the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, said not only he wanted to put two bullets in that guy's head, but he also wanted to see his wife hold their two children dying in her arms.
What and what?
Yeah, this is what he wrote in text. The person he was texting to said, Jay, please stop. I don't want to hear this. This is very upsetting. Please stop. And he went on. This is the person that my neighbors, I guess, out there have voted for to be our new Attorney General, the top law enforcement officer official of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So, yeah, that took me aback.
Uh, uh, uh,
Horrific, just horrific.
okay, I'm really going out on a limb here. I get saying stupid things. I get, me and my brother, whenever we were little, we'd always say like, "Man, that guy should be beat with a bat." Like, but we also say it about each other. It's one thing to, or playing video games. That's an intense thing to say. It's also an intense thing to
Well, he
say
meant
like,
it too. He meant it.
it's and I mean, there is free speech. I get people having a visceral reaction to people cheering that Charlie Kirk was dead, but you're not even saying that. You're saying somebody was saying something positive about them at their
Right.
death. It
Someone speaking
wasn't
about a
ridiculing a
deceased
death.
member spoke positively about that person. And for that, our new Attorney General, Jay Jones, said he wanted to put two bullets in the head of that person who had spoken positively, and that he wanted to watch his wife holding their two children dying in her arms. He wrote that. And the other person on the other end was appalled, of course, and said,
Yeah.
please stop, please stop. I don't want to hear this. But Virginians elected him anyway. Over Jason Miatas, who was the incumbent, or is the incumbent really until January the 3rd, the incumbent attorney general, and he was running for re-election for his second term. Um, and an outstanding attorney general, Jason Miatas, and they rather have the person who wants to put bullets in the head of his actually colleague in the House, and watch his wife holding their two children dying in her arms. That's what he wrote. And all of that became public. It burst out, I'm thinking about September, possibly October, I think September, before the election this year. And Virginians thought that was just hunky dory and they voted for him anyway. Well, these are my neighbors. Okay. These are the neighbors that, live around me who voted like that.
I don't even know how to unpack that.
I
The,
know,
the
me
only
neither.
thing I could think of is like, I remember in 2016 when General Mattis got the nomination. And there are a lot of quotes about him coming out. And even now I look at it and I go, yeah, but that's also a general in the military. His quotes about, like some people need to be shot. Like that's what I want out of a Marine. That's a little
Well, but I'll tell
different.
you what bothered me about General Mattis, and that is when the information emerged
Sure, no,
that
yeah.
he had admitted that he communicated to the Chinese that were there to be a U.S. Planned attack against China in some way, he would warn the Chinese ahead of time. That's treason,
I thought
and
that
he
was
was never
Milley.
tried for it.
I thought that was Milley. General Milley.
Am I mixing them up?
General Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, he was
I'm sorry. I
Trump's
think you're
Milley.
right.
No,
I
no, no.
apologize. I think
No,
you're
no.
right about that.
No.
Yeah,
And,
the two of them.
yeah, I mean,
Right,
Mattis
right.
eventually kind of stepped down and stabbed Trump in the back. But I mean,
Yeah.
just regardless of any of that, the point I'm making is like, sometimes when I do interviews with like the Delta Force guys, I'm just like, and my mom might listen. I'd be like, you have to understand like who these guys are. Like, I get that. That is insane to say that about
Yeah, I
kid.
mean, speaking about the enemy is one thing, and what we want our war fighters to be thinking about,
Yeah, I don't want a
that's fine.
snowflake. I want a
But
Rambo.
when you're talking about your fellow member of the Virginia House of Delegates, his wife and children, that just is beyond the pale.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even. I guess we can move on to like the cheerier topic of are we going to go to war with
Yeah, well,
Venezuela?
cheerier. I don't know about cheerier, but you did mention Zohran Mamdani winning the mayor's race in New York City. And he too, I guess, will be taking office early January 2026, about a what month and a half away or something like that. Um, and of course, the exodus out of New York has already started. I don't know how they're going to manage to keep in U-Hauls. There are properties all over the boroughs up for sale, and nobody wants to buy them, of course, because nobody wants to live there anymore. If you listen to Mamdani's victory speech, that would have been this past Tuesday night. Um, and the crowd just loved it, cheered, interrupted him with cheers and ovations every other sentence. He was talking in that speech. I don't know if you heard it or not, but he was talking about he's there now to be the mayor for all of the, and then he names 6 or 7 different foreign nationalities.
Oh, yeah, I saw that clip.
And never once did he mention Americans. But the troublesome part is, of course, his identity, self-avowed identity as both. Well, he says democratic socialist. He means communist. When you're talking about government seizure of the means of production, the redistribution of wealth by confiscatory taxation against the rich, and free everything, buses and grocery stores and everything else, childcare. That's communism. So he is a communist, a Marxist. That's straight out of the Communist Manifesto. But the other part of his identity that he's probably attested to is that he's an Islamic Shiite Twelver. And I think we've talked about this before, but a Twelver, of course, is a follower of the Shiite 12th Imam. And that is probably the largest subgroup, if you will, sect of Shiite Islam. And it is the ideology of the current, well, since 1979, Khomeini revolution in Iran, the ideology of the Iranian regime. Now with Khomeini, Supreme Leader Ali Khomeini. Um, and the thing about that is not only are they followers of the 12th Imam, okay, fine, who supposedly died or disappeared or something back in the 9th century, the early 800s, current era. Um, but they believe that he is the messianic figure of Islam, the Mahdi. Now, Sunnis also believe in that messianic figure, the Mahdi, but they believe that it's just some unidentified, unnamed descendant of Muhammad, and he'll come back at the end of times to usher in the day of judgment and so forth. But this Twelver branch, the followers, the Shiite followers of the 12th Imam, believe that that Imam who disappeared as a child, it was back in the 800s, is really not dead. He's just in occultation. He might be down a well. Maybe he drowned in that well. We're not quite sure. In a village called Jamkaran, which is not very far from the Iranian seminary city of Qom. But be that as it may, he's not dead. They think he is in occultation, in hiding. And so he's here. He's in the room. He's all around us, but you just don't we don't see him. But he's the one that'll come back at the end of times to usher in the day of judgment. But here's the kicker, that the regime in Tehran, and I guess that means Mamdani too, he's a Twelver, believe that they can hasten the return of that 12th Imam, that Mahdi figure, to earth by essentially instigating Armageddon on earth, by blowing up the earth. Maybe nuclear weapons, Tehran, Iranian regime, New York City, that already got hit on 9/11 by an Iranian attack plot. But they believe that they can bring back that Mahdi, the 12th Imam, and usher in the day of judgment sooner than he otherwise might have if they instigate Armageddon on earth. That's who's now going to be the mayor of New York City.
It's just I need to have on this guy I was friends with in Maryland. They used to work out with him, Tony. He's been on my podcast a couple times. He was a firefighter on 9/11.
Oh,
And I've had him on here a couple times to tell the story, and he still chokes up. He
sure,
was
of
at
course.
ground, not even like he wasn't like at ground zero. I mean, he was there, like pulling people out of the
Uh-huh.
road. That was 24 years ago. I
Yeah, can
mean,
you believe it? Right.
I get
But
if he
to
kind of
this
roll.
day, nobody understands that Iran, the Iranian regime, Qasem Soleimani, at the time, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the current supreme leader, the ones who directed that plot. And now we have a 12er going to be the mayor of New York City.
Of New York, it's not, and that's the other thing. It's like it's not just any random city. That would be concerning.
Ah. Well, the capital, if you will, of, I mean, financial
Well,
capital,
I'd say it's the
not
hub
just of the United States, but
of the world. No, it's
of the
the.
world, you can
It,
say, I think,
I mean, it's
too.
is it
I mean,
not the
London's already gone, so I'm sorry about that. They're gone. But we're following in their footsteps.
what a fascinating thing. And then Trump came out. What did Trump say? Like we might deport him.
Well, I guess there are questions being raised about his immigration status, naturalization status. For example, I served as a vice consul in 3 different countries back in the day. And as a vice consul, I sat in the window and did the non-immigrant visa interviews. And there was a form, application form that everybody had to fill out. And one of the questions on that form was, are you now ever have been a member of supporter of the Communist Party? And they had to answer that truthfully, or were it to be found out later that they had not answered truthfully, that would be grounds for revocation of their visa and deportation. Well, the question about Mamdani is obviously he's a communist and a Marxist. No, maybe not an actual card carrying member of RevCom USA or one of the other communist groups in the United States. But he's obviously a communist. In his own words, he tells us exactly what he believes, and it's almost a quotation word for word out of the Communist Manifesto. So, did he answer truthfully in his own naturalization process, um, to deny that he, supports communism? Now, I don't know where that's going to go. I don't know, exactly, what the law might decide about that or about his answers, which I do not know. But that's the question.
Um, to do like a complete 180, how are things escalating in the U.S. against Venezuela? I mean, I know we've
Oh,
been
yeah.
consistently doing strikes
That's
and
yeah, that's a very good question. So, the current Venezuelan regime is headed up by a dictator by the name of Nicolas Maduro, who, prior to assuming that presidency, was a bus driver. But he was the protege and the successor of Hugo Chavez, who died of cancer back in 2013. Now, I'll point out that in the 5 years prior to Hugo Chavez's demise, that would be from about 2008 until 2013, Venezuela and Hugo Chavez forged very close ties with the Iranian regime, and specifically with the president of the Iranian Islamic Republic of Iran back then, who was Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. They overlapped in their terms just about the same years, '08 until 2013. And Nicolas Maduro, of course, has continued that close relationship with Iran, which has all kinds of front groups, security people, weapons production facilities, maybe weapons and missiles themselves inside of Venezuela, where, full disclosure, I also served back in the early 1990s. That's one of the places where I was a vice consul. And
is that where you had the RPG shot at you?
no, no, that was El Salvador. That was during the Civil War in El Salvador when we got sort of caught in the middle. I mean, nobody was aiming at us, but
I
there was
mean,
combat. It was
and
street to street, house to house in our neighborhood.
RPG is an RPG.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
on
not
our
gonna,
roof.
yeah, I'm not gonna say, oh, it wasn't aimed. That's yeah.
Well, we were, I mean, very lucky to live in a well-constructed house there, which had multiple layers of roofing. And the final layer was a 1/4 inch thick plate of steel. And that mostly stopped it. Although I will say that when the next monsoon season came, the maids could not run around the house fast enough with buckets to catch all the water coming through the roof before it got repaired. It did. But that was El Salvador. But back to Venezuela, what I was going to say is that not only does Iran continue to have a close relationship with the Maduro dictatorship there. But Hezbollah, the Iranian Islamic Jihadi protege from Lebanon, also has an extensive presence in Venezuela, as it does throughout Latin America, really beginning with its first foothold in the tri-border area back around the early 1980s or so, from whence it spread elsewhere northward, and certainly to Venezuela, where, so again, you've got Hezbollah and Iran both there, also the Cubans and the Chinese and the Russians. But um, talking about Mamdani and his 12er identity, that's why I'm mentioning Iran and Hezbollah. But to your question, which is really about narco trafficking, Hezbollah is deeply involved in narco trafficking throughout and up from South America, to include from Venezuela. And Nicolas Maduro himself essentially is the head of the Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns, narco trafficking cartel, as well as certainly with authority over Tren de Aragua, the prison gang that now has such a presence all over the United States too. You might think of Tren de Aragua, the gang, as kind of the vehicle or the enforcers, maybe, of the cartel, but deeply involved, both of them, in narco trafficking. And so Trump finally had enough, and he has really sealed off, closed our southern border, the land border with Mexico. But so now, not that they weren't doing it before, but maybe now even more so, that the land border is so tight, the narco traffickers have switched, or not switched, but maybe increased, trying to traffic drugs up to the United States by water. In particular, up from Venezuela through the Caribbean Sea and northward towards the Gulf of America, and on up to our shores. But also off of our west coast, which would be the eastern Pacific Ocean, coming up out of Colombia, and it's its shore with the Pacific, and up from there, up our west coast. And so that's why you see President Trump giving the orders to Secretary, Department of War, Pete Hegseth, to take out these boats full of essentially mostly cocaine and also fentanyl, those two. And they have taken out, I forget how many boats now. Don't worry, the intelligence is solid. They know exactly what they're striking, whom they're striking, and why. And that these definitely are narco trafficking boats. For one thing, there are these cigarette boats, these
Yeah.
long, narrow boats with, I don't know how many, five,
Four or
six,
five
seven
engines on the back.
engines off the
Yeah.
back. Okay, those are not fishermen.
Yeah.
And you don't have a boat full of fishermen who don't have any fishing gear,
And have a bunch of
as these boats
identical
do not.
saran wrapped pallets.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that's not a fishing boat. In any case, that's what President Trump has been doing, and in so doing, saving literally probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of American lives
Yes.
that otherwise would have been killed, or at least seriously, hurt, um, by these drugs. So that's what's been going on.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the correct use of the term, but close enough, like the banality of evil, right? It's not,
Hannah Arendt's.
yeah, it's not that it's outright
Hmm.
September 11th or Pearl Harbor, but it's because it's abstract, and I mean, then quite literally, it's kind of abstract. I mean, fentanyl, it's like micrograms in the way it gets in. But if you look at, I had a guy on right when I started the show back in 2020,
Hmm.
um, Ed Hoffer, I think, Fentanyl Inc. He wrote the book, and it was.
Okay.
Yeah, he talked all about it, and he was saying even then he was like, if this was a bombing, or if this was a series of shootings, there would be military reprisals
Yeah.
that evening. But
Yeah.
because it's something where it's even in the fentanyl, it's not like it's being released as a cloud. No, it's just some ecstasy tablets are filled with it, or some cocaine has a little bit, and it's not perfectly measured. And I mean, a lot of this stuff, fentanyl, carfentanil, isocarfentanil, these things are used for the tips of darts to put elephants down in seconds. and it's coming over the border, and it's
Hmm.
killing hundreds of thousands
Yeah,
of not that it makes it any better or worse, but young people.
yeah, yeah.
It's it really is. And and the knee-jerk reaction is, well, this is the actions of a dictator. And you really
No,
do see that there's no negotiation.
yeah, no.
There's
There
not a
is
thing
this
Trump could
part
do.
of the oath of office for a president and others, defend,
Foreign
protect,
and
and defend the
domestic.
Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The president is completely within his Article 2 constitutional authorities. And thank you, President Trump. The other thing I'll mention here, you're talking about the fentanyl, and I mentioned it too. And I also mentioned that China has a presence in South America, certainly in Venezuela. And it is China that is providing the precursor chemicals to Mexico, the Mexican drug cartel, certainly, but elsewhere too, that are then mixed up and turned into, pressed out into the tablets, the pills. So China, really is behind an awful lot of this. And again, you're saying exactly right that were this a, kinetic, violent explosion of some kind of bombs or whatever, maybe it would be a different response. But because this way of China waging unrestricted warfare against the United States without yet really deploying a single tank, troop, plane, or ship. I mean, over in the eastern part, well, East China Sea or the South China Sea. To us, the Western Pacific, yes, those things are deployed, yes. But here, they're taking out maybe 100,000 Americans killed per year without deploying to our shores anyway a single tank, troop, ship, or plane. That is the very definition of unrestricted warfare. China.
To then pivot to China, um, what all is coming of the trade deal? I know the big, I guess, hubbub was whether or not Nvidia was going to be allowed to sell or market their highest or most advanced generation of their Blackwell GPU or CPU. I'm very not well versed in
No,
this.
me neither on that specifically.
Okay, so then maybe we
But we're talking here about President Trump's recent trip through Southeast Asia, where he stopped first in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia for the ASEAN conference. That is the Association of Southeastern Asian nations, where he also finalized the ceasefire peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia, among other things, brought back more deals and more investment before he went on to Japan to meet their new, uh, she seems wonderful to me, Prime Minister Takaichi, and brought back from there again too a bunch more investment deals, including Toyota manufacturing plants for the United States, jobs. And from there, he went on to South Korea, to Busan, where he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. And out of that, I guess what I'm understanding is that China agreed to pause or to curtail, I should say, to curtail the fentanyl trade, trafficking, I should say. President Trump agreed to pause the 100% tariffs that had been threatened to be imposed on China if China met the promises that it was making at that meeting there in South Korea. Um, and there's going to be follow up. We are told that President Trump will be visiting China and that Xi Jinping will be once again, for the second time, I guess, be visiting Mar-a-Lago at some time in the new year in 2026. But they're reaching, I mean, Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, deserves a great deal of credit, as does Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, and their whole teams. And Marco Rubio, of course, Secretary of State, too. I give them all a lot of credit for putting all this together. They've done a remarkable job, I think. Now, of course, the proof is in the pudding, and the follow-up from China is the question. Will
Sure.
they follow up? And Trump has been deploying tariffs not just as a means of income for the United States, although it has brought quite a lot of income, but even more so, using tariffs as leverage to gain other um, agreements from these different countries around the world, certainly China, um, to gain other concessions and agreements from them, but to even out the tariffs bilaterally imposed by each on the other, that sort of thing. That's what the tariffs are really for. They're not only just for gaining more income from the United States, but rather as a tool, really, of diplomacy, almost.
Yeah. And then I know we gotta go in a minute. I was gonna say lastly,
Oh yeah,
that I think not tweeted a truth or whatever. I think last Monday, Trump was talking about the Christian genocide in Nigeria and
Nigeria.
about
Yeah.
using U.S. military force. Is there anything developed from that, or is that just kind of
I
Trump
think he means
bluster?
it, absolutely. He has been appalled and just horrified by the reports that he's been getting about the genocide, jihad genocide. The one thing I do wish that would be openly acknowledged is, how did Islamic jihad get all the way from Saudi Arabia, Arabia at the time, in the 7th century, where it arose, all the way across Africa, and then turned south, left down the western coast of Africa to reach Nigeria by now, the 21st century. How'd that happen? Um, I think that more attention needs to be paid as to where this comes from, what this is about. It is Islamic jihad. And whom are they slaughtering? They're slaughtering Christians. Why? Because they're Christians. And they want to impose Islamic law, that is Sharia, on all of Nigeria. Nigeria has 36, I don't know if they call them provinces or states. States, I think. And the top 18 already are under Islamic control. Abuja, the capital now, since they moved from Lagos, of Nigeria, is located almost smack dab in the middle of the country. And then from there south, the remaining states are Christian majority. That is the object of the jihad, to conquer those for Islam. That's what's going on. And I just wish that, in addition to recognizing the genocide of Christians, which is absolutely horrific, that they would, this administration could articulate exactly what that is about, why that's happening, who it's doing, who is doing it to whom, and why.
And to illuminate exactly what it is, just pure barbarism.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. It's awful.
but for right now, Miss Lopez, thank you so much for doing this on short notice. And
Sure.
as always, I appreciate having you on here. And for everybody listening, please go in the description. Please go follow her on Twitter. I will text you this when it is up. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Good to be with you again.
Yes, ma'am,
Till
you as
next
well.
time.
Yep.
Take
Guys,
care.
thank you so much.